Thursday, November 11th, 1943. Dear Kitty, I have a good title for this chapter. Ode to my fountain pen, in memoriam. My fountain pen has always been one of my most priceless possessions. I value it highly, especially for its thick nib, for I can only really write neatly with a thick nib. My fountain pen has had a very long and interesting pen life, which I will briefly tell you about. When I was 9, my fountain pen arrived in a packet wrapped in cotton wool as sample without value, all the way from AACHEN, where my grandmother, the kind donor, used to live. I was in bed with the flu while February winds howled around the house. The glorious fountain pen had a red leather case and was at once shown around to all my friends. I, Anne Frank, the proud owner of a fountain pen. When I was 10, I was allowed to take the pen to school, and the mistress went so far as to permit me to write with it. When I was 11, however, my treasure had to be put away again because the mistress in the sixth form only allowed us to use school pens and ink pots. When I was 12 and went to the Jewish Lyceum, a type of secondary school specializing in the classics common in most continental countries, my fountain pen received a new case in honor of the great occasion. It could take a pencil as well, and as it closed with a zipper, it looked much more impressive. At 13, the fountain pen came with us to the secret annex, where it has raced through the countless diaries and compositions for me. Now I am 14, we have spent our last year together. It was on a Friday afternoon after 5 o'clock. I had come out of my room and wanted to go and sit at the table to write, when I was roughly pushed on one side and had to make room for Margot and Daddy, who wanted to practice their Latin. The fountain pen remained on the table unused while, with a sigh, its owner contented herself with a tiny little corner of the table and started rubbing beans. Bean rubbing is making moldy beans decent again. I swept the floor at 5:45 and threw the dirt, together with the bad beans, into a newspaper and into the stove. A terrific flame leaped out, and I thought it was grand that the fire should burn up so well when it was practically out. All was quiet again. The Latinites had finished, and I went and sat at the table. Oh, the Latinites had finished, and I went and sat at the table to clear up my writing things. But look as it might, my fountain pen was nowhere to be seen. I looked again. Margot looked, but there was not a trace of a thing. Perhaps it fell into the stove together with the beans, Margot suggested. Oh, no, of course not, I answered. When my fountain pen didn't turn up that evening, however, we all took it that it had been burned, all the more as celluloid and terribly inflammable. And so it was. Our unhappy fears were confirmed. When Daddy did the stove the following morning, the clip used for fastening was found among the ashes. Not a trace of the gold nib was found. Most have melted and stuck to some stone. Must have melted and stuck to some stone or another, Daddy thought. I have one consolation, although a slender one. My fountain pen has been cremated. Just what I want later. Oh, don't say that. Too bad it's not like much later, like now she would be in her 80s.